MSTR continues its descent after being diluted, seeing that movement down. And now, guys, we've seen a little bit of a drop with Bitcoin kind of getting out of the range that it was in. So continue to see a drop. That is now amplifying the move down. So should we see a bounce coming up here? Are we going to see a bounce around that 358, right? That stronger support level right here, or the bottom of the range at that 344? Or is it time that the sellers push us further down? Today we'll be analyzing the daily, weekly, and hourly, seeing what we should expect within the next few days, 2 weeks. All right, guys, I'm starting this analysis on the weekly time frame. Just like we covered in our last MSTR videos, we see that nice movement to that 543 after finding a little bit of a nice volatile move up, chopping around between that 103 and 182. Right after that break, only being around a couple months of price action, leading us to around 160 to 170% movement. Very nice stuff here. After that, we kind of get in a descending bull flag type range. Break that, hit that $425 level. And we've seen some back and forth between that 425 and that 358-ish level. Getting this shorter term descending range as the bulls gain that control. We tapped that 443, trying to break through and see some nice territory to that all-time high area, as there isn't a lot of resistance holding us past that point, but sellers do step in, finding that opportunity. Mixed with the dilution and now Bitcoin dropping, we see a very massive drop, really correcting that movement up. 3 green candles really testing that movement, and now 3 red candles fully retracing that movement. So should we expect a bounce here? Is this where buyers kind of go back and forth in kind of a ping pong like battle? Buyers push up, sellers push down, buyers push up. Who's going to win the battle? Or sellers really going to gain that control now with the leverage that they have? So weekly stance pretty self-explanatory, right? Breaking that bull flag. Nice movement out of that. A little bit of back and forth. Nice movement testing the top of that range where we would be pretty much free to those all-time high or that psychological $500 level. Sellers step in. Stock is getting diluted. Bitcoin is now dropping a bit. So now we've seen that nice movement down. All right, guys, now on the daily, we see this a little bit better. So instead of holding at the support level of that 369, we see that stock close at 366, breaking that support level. And once we get out of that descending range, we hit right around that support and this resistance, using that as support to continue our movement up to that 457. So the fact that we've retracing a very mirroring retracement movement and gotten out of that support, we are looking to that 358.20 area, looking for support there, as we've seen a couple touch points at that zone, kind of getting a nice movement out of that zone. Touching right here and touching right here. A little bit of a double bottom-like effect to get us out of that range. So it's where you'd be looking for support and looking for that bounce, since we already broke through that 369 level. Stock's on the tough point, guys. I mean, we're very diluted here, and Bitcoin is now dropping, as Bitcoin has had a, if we look on Bitcoin real quick, we'll cover this, but we had a little bit of a battle. We had a nice movement up, gotten in this chop range, and now we are fully breaking this chop range. Kind of broken through that 115,000 level. If buyers can't step in here and quickly correct, we have a lot of room to that 106,000 level. Since we built a little bit of base here around that 109,000 or that psychological 110,000 level, definitely could be where we find that bottom here. Still remaining in a bullish type of pattern with that high or low being formed of this general formation. But we'll have to see, definitely it looks like there is some room to the downside nevertheless on Bitcoin. So that's not going to affect MSTR in a good way, given that MSTR started its descent a good amount before Bitcoin has seen this drop. Right, turning back to MSTR, right, we've seen that drop begin right around that 457. See price kind of tap around that 4 to 5 days of price action before leading to that very drastic, wide red bar, that engulfing really this entire formation, getting us up. Sellers remain that control for 3 more days following that. A little bit of indecision here, but buyers still not in really any control. Sellers continue their movement down. Buyers try to get that push up. Considerable amount of selling pressure on this candle. And then another wide red bar. As we have to break through that support, they do so. Breaking that 391 as well as that 369 in the same day. That alone being around a 7% move to the downside roughly. So short term, not looking good for MSTR, guys, right? We've breaking through that descending range quite nicely. We've gotten that move up and then boom. Retracement move. If we can't hold that support of 358, sellers would have really gained that overall control of the stock. At the end of the day, we still are in an overall uptrend. Right, when we found out support of 232, breaking us through that bull flag like range, that in itself was around a 78 to 80% movement. See a small retracement here, pretty sharp retracement, but nevertheless, guys, we still are within this range here. So yes, bad pullback, but in the long-term picture of things, it's not like MSTR is going to completely crash down to the floor of 232. Right, retesting that bottom. That is quite unlikely, given that Bitcoin is still roughly healthy. So all is not lost if we continue this move down a bit. But if we do see a breakdown of that 344, kind of retracing back this movement, not a whole lot of resistance points to that floor of 232. Right, we have certain resistance points while we're in that range. That 318 to 320 being a pretty prominent one, breaking through that as well as that resistance, aiding that breakout. But buyers still remain that general long-term control, given that nice upside and break of that range. As long as we stay around that 344 to 450 range. All right, guys, on the hourly, we see that top a bit better, right? Buyers push us up to that 457 being the high. See that price test that level a few times, right? Get up there, test it, come back, test it. Buyers remaining strong here as we're getting multiple tests before we get that movement down. But once we get that movement down, it's quite sharp and it retraces the entire movement. And we've broken that 369, couldn't hold there, kind of right where we got above that in a nice green wide bar and began that nice ascent, really getting that volume and volatility in play there. So for the shorter term, look for those bounces of that 358 or that quick correction getting us right back above that 369 and bouncing there. And then further from there, that 344 hourly stays pretty self-explanatory, pretty similar to what we were seeing on the daily, right? We see a sharp move down after a sharp move up. Next week or two of price action is going to be very important, seeing if we get buyer control back within the stock. Overall, though, healthy stock. If you look on the monthly, guys, as long as buyers can find that support and start that move up sooner than later, definitely nothing to worry about in the long-term picture. All right, guys, I'll take you to Bitcoin, as you should follow Bitcoin if you're trading MSTR. MSTR has a lot of share in Bitcoin, and usually they mirror each other. So in the closer term perspective, we've gotten that flag and pole-like structure. See that nice move up after really claiming those highs here. We get past that resistance level and create support on that, and that's where you see that nice moving up. Nice leg up to 123,000 being the all-time high. Kind of get within this pennant, bleed under that, but we find that support of 115,000. Try to get that bounce. We tap around that 120,000 psychological level again, reject there, and we get under that point. So now looking like there's a considerable amount of room to the downside to that 106,000 or possible 110,000, holding a bit higher, as we found some solid resistance there. So if we bounce there, definitely could be, turning into a support level and could be seeing a trend back up. And like we covered in each Bitcoin video, that 106,000 was very crucial, was a tough resistance, wicked off there, came up, tried to retest it, got off there, got in that big long-term bull flag, tried to get above it, couldn't hold, and it's just been a very stubborn resistance. Once we fully got above it, that's where we find a nice hold above that zone and get above this resistance here, this kind of descending resistance, keeping us in a descending pattern. Use that as support, and then we see a nice movement up. Pointing that out, if we didn't hold at that 110,000, definitely would be looking at that 106,000 to remain as that support now, as that was a very stubborn resistance. So Bitcoin not looking horrible here. We're looking at a little bit of a pullback. I mean, we've had that nice movement as of recently, so it makes sense, as we couldn't break out of that pennant to the upside and we held that support, but we can't hold it again. So we'll see what price does within the next week or two. Look for that bounce of 110,000. If we break under that, look for that bounce of 106,000. If we bounce at that 110,000, still looking very bullish on Bitcoin here. Let me know your price predictions in the comments below. You guys see this going up, getting that bounce soon, or so is regaining that control, pushing us further down. The overall market could be pulling back. So if the overall market pulls back as well as Bitcoin's pulling back, yes, we could be seeing a bit of a descending range here. But as long as things stay roughly healthy and Bitcoin quickly corrects, MSTR starts to correct from all the dilution it's been facing, then I think that we could be seeing a bounce and a move up. Yeah, that'll do it, guys. If you want to continue seeing MSTR content, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, trade smart. I will see you all in the next one.